The concept here is that we are planning to consider holding events here on FireTalk, but not to use the events feature, which essentially is to offer people a pay-for-view and do that without charging them any money. That had a number of very small, awkward aspects, so we're not going to be doing that. So what I've done today is announce to the people that I expect to be with me here that we're doing this, and I think the way we would use this feature is we would make the announcements through our own channels, but maybe here, who knows. And then when I come to FireTalk, all I need to do is push the Go Live button, which I've done, and that's how come you're seeing me now. Now, of course, nobody's here. Nobody knows that I'm ready. But the idea for all of us, whenever we're doing teleconferences or when we are in Blab, is we want to be able to assemble the people as if in a green room before an actual broadcast. So the broadcast is going to be at the top of the hour. So that means if you're here or you're listening to the recording, you may just want to move the playhead ahead until the clock behind me shows that you're at the top of the hour, because that's when we'll begin our event. And I have no idea when anybody's going to be joining me, but my computer clock tells me we're about 8 minutes away from the top of the hour. And I'm going to be here silently for a while until somebody else chooses to join me. My understanding is that we have about 90 minutes of time. We won't be using it today. And my expectation is that we will be able to record what happens and then make the recording available and even put it up on YouTube if we want sometime in the future. If you come to this channel, lately what I've had running constantly is what you might call a tutorial. What I did was do a FireTalk episode and talk about how I do my settings. If you're watching this as a recording, say on YouTube, and you wonder how to join us for one of these events, we will announce them at this place. We'll put the announcement in the chat. Oh, I see Raymond is here. Raymond, we're just going to be doing an experiment with FireTalk later today. In other words, at the top of the hour. And I'm waiting for the other people to assemble here. Technically, we're not running it as an event on FireTalk. What we are doing is just learning how to use FireTalk and figuring out the best way to talk to each other and to our constituents. If you want to talk to me, I don't expect them to be here for another 6 minutes or so. Would you like to come on line? John, I see you're here. You're welcome to push the button for coming online. I believe it's a camera icon, which you should see, which I've never seen because I'm always a host, and ask to be a guest. John Bruce has done that. And I'm inviting John Bruce to join me now. And I'm waiting for John to join me. I believe John is in the UK. I'm just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. There's a countdown going on John's waiting screen. It is almost at 0, and now it is at 0. And he's not here. I don't know what happened there. I'll invite him again. Apparently, when I invite somebody, they've got 30 seconds to join. I noticed that when I invited him to join, the 30 seconds began, and it could be that he doesn't have his parameters set up in Chrome. In the Chrome settings, we need to do that with set up the camera and microphone. Raymond, I'm going to ask you to come on in. And Raymond is loading at this moment, well within the 30 seconds. I don't recall that countdown before.
Hello, can you hear me?
Raymond, I hear you, but I don't see you. Do you not have a camera on?
Oh, okay, sorry about that. There you go. It's kind of dark here. It's about 10 o'clock here.
Kind of
10
dark.
a.m. I mean 10 p.m. Yep, it's kind of dark. Yeah.
Can you put a
Okay.
light on?
Okay, give me a minute. Is it better?
Yes, much better, actually.
Okay. It's
Raymond, where
actually
are you? I mean, geographically.
I'm from the part of Asia. It's Asia actually.
And which country?
Indonesia.
You're in Indonesia right now.
Yep.
Do you use FireTalk a great deal?
Sorry, can you
Do
repeat
you
that?
use the platform we're using is FireTalk. Do you use it often?
Well, before using FireTalk, actually, I used Blab before. Have you heard about Blab before?
Yep, we all used Blab. We loved it, and then they died.
Absolutely.
John Bruce is asking, what do I do? John, what I want you to do, and just give me a moment, Raymond, because I need to talk to John a little bit because he hasn't got
Don't worry.
his parameters set up. John, what I'd like you to do is just ignore this for a moment, but go into the settings on your browser. I assume you're using either Firefox or Chrome, and I don't know my way around Firefox. I can tell you what to do in Chrome. Will that help? Okay, so what you need to do is go into the settings in Chrome, and I think you've done this before, and work your way to where you can set your camera and your microphone, and set them in Chrome. And when you're done that, you can close your settings and come back here. Will that work for you? John Bruce is in the UK. Sherry's going to join us. Sherry Jennings is south of me. She's outside of Olympia, or in Olympia, in Washington State of the United States.
By the way, Robert, if it's time for me to jump out, feel free to tell me. All right?
That'll be fine. Sherry, I'd like you to meet Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
Hi, Sherry. Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How about you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. Where are you?
I'm from Indonesia.
Oh. Wow. What time is it there?
It's 10 p.m. right now. Yep. By the way,
Linda Steer joining us. Linda is in North Carolina.
Hello.
Hi, Linda.
And we have Raymond here with us.
So Raymond, what attracted you to this particular FireTalk?
Well, it's actually, at first I used Blab before, and then I meet random friend, and after that, after time passed by, I become friend with them, and that's why I feel like I can meet a lot of new people and experience new new things together. That's why I want to meet new people and practice my English. Actually, my English is very bad actually, and then since I start meeting new people, I try to learn more English as more as before.
Actually, I think your English is very good. So.
I do too.
I wish I spoke any other language as well as you speak English. I think that you can be very proud of your understanding and comprehension and use of English.
Well, I'm still not good at using the structure and some of the verb. I'm not sure how to, especially when pronouncing. It's hard when you have different tongues with other person in another side of the world.
I can understand that. Raymond, you were wondering what this group does. We're a group of people who work with boards of directors, usually of nonprofit organizations, to help them govern their organizations with transparency and with integrity, and accomplish real things for their communities. And we all have specific training. We have each of us has a consulting practice, and it's the business of consulting is often very complex, and we try to sort out some of the issues when we get together to talk. We would like to be able to do this kind of a thing with people who have problems. We'd like them to share with us so we can both learn from them, and they might be able to learn from us as well. So we're looking for this platform to help us to be able to do that going forward. We have a website, which is Xylem, spelled the same way as this channel, xylem-group.com. And that's the end of my commercial for today.
And Raymond, we were also on Blab, experimenting with Blab for some time until we pulled the plug. And so that's how we found ourselves here in trying FireTalk.
We had done 17 episodes, all of which are posted at our website, by the way. And I was I thought we were getting onto something of a roll over there. And so I was really disappointed when that wound up. And I see that John, I can tell, since we haven't heard from John, that he's still having trouble waiting around in the morass of
I see that there's
Chrome.
He says there's a message that John Bruce wants to be a guest.
That was some time ago.
Oh, and it didn't work?
He has tried twice to come in and was not successful.
Just let me know when he wants to jump in again. I will jump. That's not a problem for me, actually.
Thanks, Raymond. And if you want to see us in action, did I spell that correctly, folks? I just put up our website, so you can see you might not find it very interesting, but you might find it interesting to see what we did with Blab and what we kind of hope to do with FireTalk. Both Blab and FireTalk, you can get the recording, but you don't get the chat. And I'm going to have to figure out some way that we can capture that, because I think the chat fields can be very interesting. I'm a big fan of... say again?
Good one. So I think I have an idea to help you with that. There's actually a way that you can record your screen so that you can record what they are talking about on the chat. Have you tried that before?
I have a program called ScreenFlow, but it takes up gigabytes of memory for just minutes of airtime. And if we're going to have one of these things that goes for up to 90 minutes, that probably would sink my computer before we were done. So I have used ScreenFlow, and that would be a very heavy-duty thing to be able to record what essentially is a text file. If nothing else, what I can do is simply copy the text file into a text editor and add it as an add-on, as a kind of a still thing. But you don't get the dynamic nature of the chat. If we're talking about something and some other people in the chat are talking about us as well, you want to be able to see when they're saying things, and I don't see how that's done.
Okay, I see that.
The other thing that I've discovered here is that if I put this through to YouTube, I can do a little bit of magic with the recording on YouTube and force it to produce subtitles. And from the subtitles, I can probably I found a way to download the subtitles and then correct them, and I might be able to publish some of the things that are said, if they're particularly interesting, as a completely separate article.
I see that. Okay.
And we still aren't hearing from John. And of course, we didn't start anything at the top of the hour, and I don't think that that's too much of a problem.
Well, I think you should start this thing, everything, because look at your time.
Well, we don't have an audience. We're still at this point experimenting with what we're doing. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to talk about our progress here, about anything to do with governance or any news. Anybody have any comments? Linda, Sherry? I take that as a no.
Let me go. I'm going to go grab some notes. I'll be right back.
Thanks, Sherry. Well, Linda, what have you been up to lately?
Working. I'm actually, I'm interested in our guest. I'm interested in Raymond.
Okay.
Interesting. I know that you're joining us, but I'm always fascinated by someone who's not from North America, and I know that we've got colleagues here. John's from the UK, and Robert's in Canada. But you know how you view what happens in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, I have heard lots of news actually about is it about the elections?
Well, that's U.S. elections, which I don't know that I even want to touch that one. But you know, that's probably what's emanating from the Western Hemisphere around the rest of the world. But it's always, you know, we talk among each other, but we never have. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot either. But it's really fascinating. We've got this opportunity here to be cross-cultural and cross-hemispheres and people willing to talk with each other. So I'm curious about how you view the world.
Well, as I've seen this news for about these few weeks, there's something very hard between Russia and America, and of course with UK, and of course with China too. It's part of Asia. So the thing is, Russia is trying to put a pressure in American people and UK people by sending. This is what I've heard and I've seen from the internet, especially from YouTube. So I heard that Russia is trying to start a war. Is that true? I'm not sure about that, but that's what I've heard about.
Well, the relationship between the United States and Russia is very shaky right now.
Yep.
And particularly because of Russia's interference in places like Syria and against American interests. So, and of course, Vladimir Putin has long been a difficult actor in that part of the world. So, yeah, I would. We're almost back to the Cold War era in terms of how the relationship is between our country and Russia.
I would say the Cold War is in full flight at the moment. I wouldn't say almost. I think it's every bit as serious today as it was any time in the past. And my sense is that Russia is not very wealthy. It has some things that could make it wealthy, but I think it is struggling against the sanctions that are held against it. And I also see Lieutenant Colonel Putin as somebody who's playing a game, and he plays rough. And I think Americans have always prided themselves with playing fair. And as a Canadian watching a little bit from the sidelines, I see a game unfolding, and I tend to think of it in game mode rather than in politics.
It is a game for him.
Yes. If I move here, how does it affect the board over there? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the trouble is, and also looking at my neighbors to the south, people watch the news and they have a very short time horizon, and these games often take a long time to play out. I watched the current American president, Obama, prepared to play a long game, but it's hard for him to do that with a term of office that's going to last only a short time. I think Putin thinks he's in for the long time. I think he sees himself as something of a tsar. And so he's willing to play a long game, whereas watching the evening news, you expect results really quickly. And I think I'm hoping that the American citizens are willing to be patient with some of the things that they put in motion.
I think those who are educated are. Those who are not educated aren't. And mostly it's people who are in pain because they have not recovered from the recession that we had. And, people expect results within 2 terms of a U.S. president, and you cannot expect results in 2 terms, particularly if you have a U.S. Congress that is of the other party politically. So, they at every turn, Obama was being thwarted. And, it's not, that's not without its own problems here. The system of checks and balances.
So actually, there is one thing that I don't understand. We are in a modern world. Why don't we just solve things with a cold-headed? And the only thing I can catch from what they are doing right now is they are looking for media. They are taking attention from the media to show the world that they are the strongest country in the part of the world. And of course, not only that, what I think is actually wait a minute, I lost my work. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's what I think.
You're doing great.
By the way, John is here, so I think I should jump up.
John hasn't said that he wants to come in again.
He has no idea where he is.
I don't know if he's got his settings done. I think he's probably enjoying the conversation.
Okay. So,
John, what do you want to do? You need to put it in chat so we have an idea of what your intentions are.
So that's what I think. They want to show the media and the rest of the world that they are the best. And the only thing that they cannot stop is their ego. That's what humans cannot stop themselves from. It's the ego. When you have the highest ego, you will always want to compete with the other to go higher and higher and higher. And actually, there's no limit to the sky. But they want to keep on climbing and climbing, and yeah, that's what they want. They don't want to be looked down by the other country, so they feel like, oh, I need to get higher and higher and higher. That's what they think they are doing right now. That's the ego, actually. The problem is with the ego. That's what I think.
Well, if you really want to go there, my personal philosophy is it's because it's male driven. It's that conquering male attitude that has caused us to be in that situation. So, I don't know if female leaders would be any better at coming together, as you started to say. Why can't we get together and talk this through and use calmer heads? But if you look at who has declared war over the years, it's always been a cadre of old men who have declared war. And they're not going to war, but they're going to send young men to war. So, that it's historically, that's just the way it's been. I mean, it goes all the way back to the Iron Age when men were able to forge swords and learn how to ride horses, and they would go in and conquer and take what they wanted. And it was all about conquer. And, I look at Donald Trump, and he's pretty much got that same attitude, which is why he scares me.
Yep.
And John Bruce,
Sherry, do you see
both males
John's?
are heavily influenced by their mothers in their early years.
Yes, because their mothers think they're wonderful.
Yep. Absolutely.
But, Raymond raises a great point, right? Which is all kind of connected to the kind of work that we do. But that, I don't think, and it's so easy to just be going day to day with all of this stuff, and not realize how high the stakes are. Literally, we're at the brink of somebody just getting angry and wanting to retaliate and pushing the wrong button, and then we're all impacted and gone or whatever, right? That it really does. What does it take for people, outside of that to just be willing to come together? Like, what do we? We're all in the same world, whether we like it or not. We're more closely knit than we think. Like what? So Raymond, what time is it where you are? What day and time is it where you are?
All right. Right now it's 10:15 at night, and it's 17 October, Monday.
Okay. And it's 11 a.m. same day here in the East Coast, and Sherry and Robert are 3
Crack of
hours
dawn.
earlier, crack of dawn, 8:17, and John's 5 hours ahead at
Okay.
4:17 p.m. UK. But we're spread, right? I mean, we've got a pretty cross-world contingent here. And we're talking, we've got common interests, and
That's the power of internet.
that is the power of internet. There's something else available here and possible that I think the normal kind of mode that we've had about choosing leaders or what people think they have reign over gets busted up out of social media. But, the kind of things that we deal with as far as the governance modeling that we work with is to say that government really has legitimacy only on behalf of, who allows it to exist. In the U.S., we're saying that it's by the people, right? But there's something that has the government have authority to exist. Dictators are going to say that they're the authority to have it happen.
Yeah. Mostly I've heard about it is like, and I have said that it's by the people, for the people, and from the people. But in the end, it's all back to the government again. That's what it is. The government rule all of the thing. And then people say that it's a free country. Well, how can it be a free country when government control everything? It cannot be a free country when government takes everything from you, right? That's just, ridiculous. That's what it is. So, yeah.
What about the age issue? And I'm kind of an old guy. I'm the oldest one in this group here. I'm what you call a war baby. The boomers were behind me, and I remember having great hopes for the boomer population even before it was called that. In the 60s, there was a huge human rights action that was going on, particularly in the United States, but it reverberated around the world. And I thought that generation was going to be able to do wonderful things, and somehow it never happened. After the Americans won the space race to the moon, somehow the vision of what going to space was all about was lost. I watched the United States lose a lot of technology that they developed during that time. And it never happened that the boomers seemed to understand what was important. They got on with their own lives of taking care of their families and making, in many cases, lots of money, or not making lots of money, but hoping they would. And that was lost. What about the millennials? There's a lot now of people talking about what it takes to market to the millennials, what the millennials want, what they think about. Can we look to the next generation to understand that the geopolitical things that we worry about are largely constructs of our mind? The borders between countries are artificial. There's nothing there when you go and look at the border unless somebody's built a fence. The difference is the whole business, that great line that somebody said, it's the economy, stupid. Folks, the economy isn't anything. It's only what we say it is. It's a mental construct. What really is happening, though, is during my time, my generation has ripped through the resources of the world in a careless fashion, and the consequences has been a change in the climate. This is real. And we also see a political situation that scares and impoverishes thousands or millions of people. Are the millennials going to be able to say, no, we can do this in a better way? Are tools such as the one we're using right now, the great global nervous system of the internet, allowing people to talk across borders, can it make a difference? Do we see a generation that can say, no, we're not going to do it the old way? Is that possible?
That's possible, actually.
What would catch fire? What would make the millennials say, no, we're not satisfied trying to live the way our parents did. We want to run this world differently. We want to run it for each other and for ourselves, and we don't want to destroy it.
Well, it depends. Sometimes our parents, especially the Asian people, they grow their children very strictly, and the only problem is we grew up inside a bubble. That's what it is. So when someone grew up inside a bubble, they cannot change anything. They only follow the rules and the path, and they won't change anything because it's just same as the past. But when someone's trying to break the bubble, that's what it is. That's the person who can change the world or change anything from the past to make a difference. Well, it's very rare when there's someone like that, especially when they want to change the world. So, it actually takes time. And even if it takes time, and I trust that it will happen one day, if there's a person who really cares about the world and cares about the future. Yep, that's what I think.
So we are counting on someone, a leader, to emerge who can articulate a concept of a different world that people can get behind. Is that where you're going with that, Raymond?
Not exactly like that, actually. The thing I'm trying to say is, it all returns to ourselves. Do we want to change this place to be a better place? I mean, this world to be a better place? Or do we want it just to flow like that and make it worse? So, if there's someone deep in their heart, feel that this thing is not going correctly anymore, I need to change everything because it's not working like the last time. It's transforming from the past to the future. Well, it depends on ourselves. Do we want to change it, or do we want to just leave it wait until someone who will change it when it takes a really long time? That's what I think. So it goes back to the individuals. That's what I think. Yep.
John Bruce says, I have moments of optimism in terms of some of the chatter in the media. Lots of talking going on in the background, which I think is looking for a way of breaking out. Mm-hmm. My wife is down in Quito, in Ecuador, right now at Habitat 3, and I'm hoping for some great things to come out of that. And because she is there, I'm watching what's going on. What I'm hearing is that probably the answers are not going to arise from our government leaders, but they're probably going to arise from individuals around the world and through some kind of dialogue. And maybe not fire talk, but some kind of dialogue.
And in Quito, Robert, I thought it was very interesting in the program, they have a complete day devoted to women's breakout sessions. Because, if you think about, and you go way back, I read a book a long, long time ago called The Chalice and the Blade. And what it had to do with was that way back in early human history, we were traditionally an agrarian society, which meant that we were, relatively static in where we lived. We planted things, we grew things, and lived relatively peacefully until, of course, the Iron Age and the swords were developed, and the ability for men to go out and take what they wanted rather than do it themselves. So that really changed the whole dynamic. And, it really does raise the question, though, of what do we have in terms of governance, and how does it really work? So in 2013, a book came out. The author's name is Mark Bevir, Bevir, and he talks about a theory of governance. And what he says is that the relevant actors first inherit historical traditions, and then they revise in response to dilemmas. And by the way he talks about governance is that governance is broader than government, because government is only an institution, but governance is the creation of rule and order in social practices. So there's two things there, is that there's government, but government is not the be-all to end-all. The practices that emanate from government can be definitely different. And the idea that we have inherited this kind of male-dominated, and apologies to the males on the call, but with this male-dominated society, and women have been attempting to have an equal voice and equal say. But even here in the U.S., we're seeing that women who have come forward to say they've been sexually assaulted by a presidential candidate are being dismissed. And so women's voices haven't really been heard or elevated to the point of being heard. And it's not just about having equal representation. It's about having diversity of thought, diversity of intention, and diversity of thinking about what works and what doesn't. And I think sometimes, and our colleague Caroline Oliver just published something. I have a lot of thoughts here that are kind of loosely strung together, but Caroline... Keep
going. This is great.
Caroline Oliver just recently published something about, I think it was on LinkedIn, something about the difference between groupthink and speaking with one voice. And so, it kind of loops back to what Raymond was saying, is that the leadership doesn't have to be one person, but it needs to be a strong collective one voice that of those people who want to break that bubble and move forward. And I think that requires some inclusion and not exclusion. And you need that diversity of thought. And if women are constantly, and it's here in the U.S., I've done a lot of research and a lot of work on this, because it really does still happen in corporate America, in government. Women are treated differently. Women's voices aren't really heard equally. And if you just look at the way Hillary Clinton's being treated in the presidential election, if she were a man, none of these things would be raised. So there is a lot of this that we need to be respectful of each other, respectful no matter who you are, where you're from, what your background or history and culture is, but we need to be respectful of each other. And breaking the bubble means getting out of yourself to be able to listen to and really hear the other. Okay, off soapbox now.
No, stay on your soapbox for a bit longer, because I do have a question for you.
Go for it.
And I think a lot of what you're talking about is manifest in the conversation going on with regard to the American presidential election. You have raised the question of gender. There's another issue, and that is, and I think it relates to what you're saying, and it must be an important part of the dialogue. A lot of people approach changes in the world that they would tolerate or will not tolerate according to their ideological position. And and people say this is the way the world has to be because this is the ideology that I subscribe to. It's very difficult when somebody is saying it has to work out this way because this is the philosophy I follow, rather than saying, let me hear what you have in mind, and I'll think about it and see if I can integrate it and see if we can come to some kind of a common understanding or place, or we can find higher principles. If people already have the higher principles and nothing is going to allow them to change that, how do we get out of that jam? And I'm talking about political ideology, economic ideology, religious ideology. Are there any others?
Well, I think one political ideology is getting a wake-up call in the United States, the Republican Party. It clearly does not stand for the values that they say that they stood for over a lot of years, and they've got a nominee that doesn't stand for the values that they purport to have. So, I don't know, does it take that much to create a change in helping the people to listen? It's pretty extreme, but it definitely is happening. And circling back to the media, the conservative media, there's a rift in the media right now. There's half of the folks in the conservative media who are absolutely not going to vote for Donald Trump. They are going to vote for Hillary Clinton, and the other half who are adamantly supporting Donald Trump at all costs. And so it's an interesting thing that's happening because it's the same thing that's happening within the party itself. And it's going to possibly affect the congressional members who are on the ballot in November as well, because some of the folks who are supporting Donald Trump are having some backlash against the establishment Republicans and likely will not vote for them. So, it's really, it's kind of interesting. It's all sort of backfired in many ways, but maybe the explosion is what was needed to begin to shake things up. I don't know.
I hear the reviewers referring to Republican and conservative orthodoxy, and I thought that was a really odd term to use when it came to a political approach. It certainly does stand in the way of people talking through a situation and coming up with a better world.
Well, I'm listening, right? And there's a couple of things that Raymond brought into this. One about the ego, and the other about freedom. What really is it to be free? And then there's the ideology, right? Which is I've got an opinion about something, and my opinion is the right opinion, and everybody else should be to my view. The ego of my ego, I have to be better than another. There's the not treating gender equally, right? And one of the things that when you look out throughout human history, or even the condition of the world right now, or the condition of the Middle East, which we're not taking responsibility for how many decades worth of foreign policy that would have, what I'm talking with all of this, right? It's the inequality. It's that I've got the better view, or I've got the better interest. I know more I know more about what is good for you than you do. And there's this division, divisiveness, that really lays one person ahead of another. So it's like this you or me. It's either going to be me winning and you losing, or you winning and me losing. So it's either or. I'm not you, you're not me. And it's always going to lead to some inequity about somebody having authority over another, or you grant privileges to the government. And I think in the grand experiment of the U.S., this grand democracy experiment, which is an experiment over the past 250 years, the ongoing push and pull about how much control does government have. They shouldn't have any. They should have a lot. It's all, and it's this level of In other words, you.
I'm getting an awful lot of noise somewhere.
If it's you or me, kind of existence in the world, somebody's always going to want to be fighting for beyond the better. And then you've got oligarchy, where the minority is going to impose its will on everybody else, or you've got dictatorships and I'm going to be the best and I'm the one to fix it, and that kind of thing. But I'm thinking from what Raymond raised, we do have this phenomenon of the internet, and the one thing that authority chafes under is to have the masses talking to each other. I mean, the great way to generate authority and rule is you have the masses not communicating. Don't let them talk to each other, and then I can reign over you. But if you could imagine that we related to each other as, if you don't win, I don't win. Yet I've got an interest, this sense of breaking the bubble, right? That somebody's truly got an interest in everybody winning. That what people need or what they're interested in or what they're fighting for, like ISIS. I even look at ISIS from the standpoint of people are wanting something they're not getting and nobody's listening to them. So what am I relegated to? I'm just going to destroy the rest of the world, or whatever that is. But suppose we actually operated with each other about, which is fundamentally policy governance is all in service of that. This is what is going to benefit all of us. And I'm not going to be able to have what I want or my interests be met if somebody else loses. If we put that all on the table, what would we come up with?
The concept of winning suggests some kind of a contest. And,
right, or somebody's got to lose.
Well, yes. And that's kind of where, that's something I might like to talk a little bit about. One of the things I have discovered fairly recently in my history is, for some reason, I don't seem to have the competitive gene. As a kid, I was never interested in competition. When I went to school, if you wanted to be fit, you had to take part in competitive sports. I didn't want any part of it. I'm sorry now, because I enjoy hiking the great mountains around here and backcountry skiing in the winter. We've been getting a lot of rain down to sea level now, but there is snow falling on the peaks around here, and I'm so glad to see that. And I wish I had grown a large heart, but I didn't, because the only avenue to that was available to me when I was young was competitive sports, which didn't interest me at all. And a lot of people, in effect, school teaches you to be competitive. The whole business of grading in schools, I consider to be degrading. I used to say, you grade chickens, you don't grade children. And yet, we do this in our schools. We say that you need to compete for jobs. You need to compete. Businesses need to compete with one another. And businesses do everything they can to be able to compete effectively and turn the costs over to the rest of the world, to future generations. And maybe there is something we need to do about that. I see Raymond wants to leave. He puts up a sign that says, sorry, I think I need to get off. Raymond, it's been a joy talking to you. I'm really glad you took the time to spend with us today.
And thank you for having me. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
And we'll see you again on the Bitstream sometime.
See you again, and see ya.
So one of the things I wonder about is how effective is and how motivating and how useful is the idea of competition, and do we and is it appropriate to set up such a powerful reward system for the people who can win in a competitive environment? Whereas I've tried to spend much of my life trying to get people to work together cooperatively. I want to build a world where ordinary people can do extraordinary things, not just a few extraordinary people get to do extraordinary things. Any comments, Linda, Sherry? And John, there's a seat for you if you want to try to come back in here.
Well, what I was saying earlier, and I know that I used winning, but I was thinking, I was intending it to be less in the paradigm of competition and somebody's got to be somebody's got to have something more over somebody else. I was looking at it more along the line of what you're talking about, Robert. Why can't we just mutually come together, which is what we're looking at with policy governance, right? And we mutually come together. What is it that we commonly want to accomplish? And we work together in having that happen so that everyone's happy. If you're not satisfied or don't have your needs met, then that's a missing for me. I care about that.
And John Bruce has arrived and is taking the seat that Raymond had.
Fabulous.
Hi. Sorry, I'm struggling a little at the moment, but I was just struck on the winning bit, Robert, because I thought you were talking about me when you said you don't have the competitive gene. Because for many of my early years, I thought I was not competitive. I think the reality was I wasn't very good at competing. So I wouldn't say I took on a loser mentality, but there were some things fighting for, but most things weren't worth fighting for. Only as I've got older have I realised that actually winning is very important. The flip side, of course, is that losing is very important too, because you can't exactly have one without the other. So
John,
yeah.
your microphone is breaking up. Are you on a headset, or are you in through your computer?
Into my computer.
Mm.
Is that any better?
You just say something more.
I was talking about the importance of losing as well as the importance of winning.
Yeah, you're still breaking up.
When you speak, there's a fair amount of static that is associated with the sound. It seems to be generated by the sound. It's almost as if you're overdriving it, but you're not louder. It just is getting somewhat distorted. But we're getting a very good image from you, so I think that your internet connection is okay.
Well, looks are important, aren't they?
If you look like me, maybe not.
Now, can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me any better?
It sounds exactly the same, actually.
Can you hear me any better?
Tap your boom microphone. I'm not sure that's the one that's active. Not active. You may have to go back into Chrome settings to be able to activate the boom microphone on your headset instead of your internal microphone on the computer.
Now it's working.
What is working?
I can now hear you through my headset.
You can hear me through the headset. Tap your boom, because I don't know that your boom's active yet. Nope, no, we can't hear those taps at all.
Okay. I'm having some files installed on my system, so that's probably what's going on. Windows 10 has been delivering many of its birthday or anniversary or death day updates, and every so often nothing works properly. By properly, I mean in a way that I can make it work. So it's been driving me crackers the last few days. I have 3 operational laptops, well, 1 tablet and 2 laptops, and I can only get email on one of them. And it's a real swine, because I have 3 for matters of convenience, not because I collect computers. And so I'm unable to make the best use of email, for example, because I don't always have the computer to hand, the right computer to hand. So I've been moving, this is the one I can get email on, and I've been moving it around, and I had to unplug camera and microphone and then plug them back in. And I think having plugged it back in, somewhere along the line, Windows or something has kind of said, hold on a minute, didn't know you still had that. Is that any better?
I don't think your boom is where the mic is coming from. Tap your computer where its microphone is.
I have no idea where its microphone is.
I can hear keys or something being tapped on your computer, so I suspect that's where the microphone is.
That's me tapping the machine, but not this. Let me. No, I don't want to switch off the camera, really, do I?
I don't know. Can you change your settings in Chrome on the fly? In other words, can you do that while you're on here? Because you should be able to identify the boom mic in the microphone part of the Chrome settings.
I've never been able to find Chrome settings. So,
well, that's the problem. Is that because you're using Explorer?
No, I'm using Chrome.
Right. No, you'll have to find the settings because there's no other way. There are no controls here in FireTalk. They leave that entirely up to the browser.
I haven't had a difficulty previously, so I mean, let's not take up any more time. I shall continue to throw my computers around out of my pram until eventually something works.
I got about 80% of that.
No, carry on amongst yourselves, guys. Ignore me.
Oh, ignore you, yes. Well, what I've done with these since we're getting to what 11 minutes before the top of the hour, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with FireTalk. My way of coping with it is to acquire the MP4 file, which takes a long time to come to me. I'll download it of the event, and it's only the video event. I probably should take a screenshot or something or a copy on TextEdit or something like that of the chat, and then put that up on the website. I can run it through YouTube, and as we saw from my previous experiment, I can have YouTube create closed captions. It might be useful for some of the discussions to be able to take the text. This requires a fair amount of processing, and I'm not sure I want to make this a full-time job. I will report to you on all of the steps, and maybe there's a way we can parse the job of putting something cogent out on the web, because that, I think, is where we're going as we look to future conversations, is what can we put up on our site that makes it easy for people to discover what we have said here. And I think one of the things we can do is put the text of of some of the more meaningful statements we have on the website along with the broadcast with the time code so that people can go and hear exactly what the whole thing was all about and how it emerged. Does any of that sound interesting? Sherry, Linda, John?
If you were to bottom line what you just said, right, in terms of attempting to bring not a video, but the audio to from these? Because essentially, this meeting, we're exploring the possibility of using FireTalk, right?
Yes.
And right now, we don't have the video capability as far as like recording it, unless you recorded it separately.
Yes, we do. I can take the whole video without the chat field, but the video itself, the four screens that you're seeing right now, I can extract that. In fact, that's what I have to do. Blab used to give me an MP3 audio that I could download. These people give me the right to download the MP4 video file with the audio. I can then extract the audio if I want. I can do any kind of post-production once I've got the video, and to be able to exhibit it, I can make this recording available to people who come here as a replay. If you look at look below the screen where people are talking, you can watch the replay of previous episodes. I can also put it up on our website through YouTube. I can upload the FireTalk event to YouTube with any other edits I've made to it, which could include musical intro and titling and that kind of thing, all of which is post-production work, and make it available on our own website. I presume ultimately what we want to do is make this a place of dynamic activity, maybe once a week. That's been our practice, and then make our website a resource for people to discover what we have talked about. Does that sound right?
How long do you estimate it takes you post-production for this?
It depends on what I do. If I was simply to download this file, this hour-long file, and then turn around and upload it to YouTube, it would downloading would probably take an hour and a half, depending on how fast the internet was, and then uploading would take that much time again. Any other post-production that I'm going to do takes up more time. I could easily put in half a day preparing this. If we want to extract the text, as I said, I can get it up on YouTube. I can force YouTube to do the closed captioning, and I can extract that. Then I'd like some help to be able to take that file, because computer-generated closed captioning gets pretty close to what people said. You usually can understand what's happening, but it makes an awful lot of mistakes. So that needs to be hugely edited.
So did you see what Raymond posted?
Yeah.
I know you know Audacity, Robert, but I don't know if you're familiar with Cam Studio. Have you heard of that?
Cam Studio, I use for screen recording. I use ScreenFlow, and I've got another program called Screenium. But the big, full featured one in my editor is also ScreenFlow. I paid for that. It's very capable. No, there are lots of programs out there. Thanks, Raymond. And I will take a look at Cam Studio to see if it's in any way simpler and faster. Over at the Worthy Organization, a website of Sherry, of mine and Sherry's, for the book, The Worthy Org, the Worthy Organization. What is it called?
The Worthy Organization?
Worthyorg.com. You can see where I've taken some Blab episodes that we had over a year ago and put a header and a footer on it with titling and music. And I use the brilliant free music from Kevin MacLeod, which I credit when I do that. All of that was worth doing, because if it formats what we do, it's certainly worth putting in a couple of hours' time to do the work. When I did the audios, what I found is when we speak and you're on camera, sometimes when you're thinking, you don't speak, but people can see that you're mulling it over, and the gap doesn't feel like nothing is going on. It doesn't feel like dead air. But on a strictly audio thing like a podcast, dead air doesn't make any sense. People will think that maybe something is wrong. So what I would do is go and tighten up all of that. For an hour event, it would take me an hour to go through that and do these small edits. I was doing nothing of substance except once when I asked for permission. It just flowed easier. I know enough about editing audio to be able to leave room for people to breathe and stuff like that, which a lot of people don't do. You can always tell when people are editing it badly, but I've done that for years. So there's a number of options as to how we process this afterwards. If we were interested in the text, and I think the reason the text is important is because people can scan text quickly and see things that are interesting to them. The other thing is, for the search engines, if we have the text of important parts of our conversation there, that can be searchable and people can find what we've said as well. So there could be something useful there. But I'd like some help if we're going to be doing that. We might put together a post-production team to make it not just one person in the kitchen doing all the work, but several people doing a little bit of work. And John has bailed or left. Does anybody want to add anything?
I was just checking that it's valuable, that it's worth the energy input. And I see, Robert, that from your perspective that it is, and having people to assist you with post-production to clean up the kitchen and make sure the dishes get washed. So yes, I think that's good.
I'm good at mise en place.
Thank you, Sherry.
I don't know how that's relevant to what you post-production, but just saying.
Well, this is the first time we've done it this way under the new regime at FireTalk. So I'm going to be interested to see what I get out of this. And what I'll do is let you know what my post-production process was. And maybe we can use that as another experiment.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. It was great having Raymond on.
And we're in the last minute. Any final words?
No, it was great having Raymond on.
Yeah, it was.
Awesome. Connecting with the rest of the world.
Yes.
And John Bruce over in chat lets us know that he is still here. Well, let me say that I appreciate everybody who's been here today. That includes Raymond from Indonesia and John Bruce from the United Kingdom, who are both in the chat field at this time. Sherry Jennings from Washington State, United States, and Linda Steer from North Carolina, United States. I'm Robert Ballantyne on Bowen Island, just outside of the city of Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. Thank you very much for watching and listening. It's Monday, October the 17th, here in the Pacific West Coast. It's just 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific Daylight Time. The year is 2016. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And you know what?
Bye.
I'm going to end the broadcast.
Bye.
Bye.